I'm excited to be here with you guys as always, and I have a topic again for today. It is a question, or I get asked so often by people, and it's quite a complex one, and it is, should I be applying for disability for my complex PTSD? Will I be able to get it? Would you advise it? How should I prepare for it? Those kind of questions. I get that so often. Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit to that because I've spoken to thousands of people around the world who have applied, have not applied, and the outcomes of it. So I want to share a little bit about that, just an overall view of it. I won't give you any individual things for privacy reasons, obviously, but because there's so much to consider about that. It is very, it is very a very complex process, and I also understand that each country has different systems in place. So I'm in Australia. In Australia we have the NDIS that we can apply for. Okay, so first thing that I really want to highlight is the interview process, or the testing. It has different names in different countries, but you have to set up an appointment with someone who kind of analyzes and goes through, asks you a lot of questions. Okay. Just about everyone I spoke to found this interview extremely overwhelming, kind of intrusive, invasive, and because there's so many detailed questions, and often the interviewee or the interviewer is quite cold or quite methodologically the way they go through the questions, and they're not really, or that's what people told me. I've never been in one of those interviews, but there's no empathy there. So people leave those interviews feeling really overwhelmed. The head is spinning, their thoughts, memories from the past are coming up, they feel really triggered afterwards. Yeah? So I'm not telling you this to avoid that. I'm telling you this so you know that when you have that appointment, so you can prepare yourself for it. Okay? So when you know that people before you went in there and they felt really overwhelmed, okay, what can I do so I'm most grounded before, so I feel really centered within myself? Can I take someone with me? Can I have things written down for me? And to get through this, and especially afterwards, have things planned for after the interview. Have a person that you trust there, perhaps, that you can meet up with, or have an activity plan that helps you to ground and be calm down, calm and center yourself again. And because this, especially when you're going through the interview, I'm assuming when you're applying for this, you're actually in a more of a crisis state. Okay, because there's a phase when we have complex PTSD when we can go through crisis, and so did I. But I'll talk to that in a minute. But I want to also cover, when we're going through the interview, we often get a lot of labels. Okay? And that's different again for different countries. Like in Australia, my psychiatrist always said things like anxiety disorders, OCD, perhaps even ADHD, depressive disorders, and so forth. They're kind of part of complex PTSD. Complex PTSD is almost an umbrella term for this. While in other countries, they need each one listed separately for insurance purposes. Okay, it doesn't matter which one it is. We have a tendency to over-identify ourselves with the labels. Me too. Okay, so I'm not criticizing anyone here too. It's that sense, it's a difference. It's like, I feel depressed, I have depression, or I am depression. Okay, I don't know about you, but I went through quite a few severely or major depressive episodes in my life, and it really felt like I am depression. There's nothing else about me apart from depression. It was so heavy, couldn't see anything else, do anything else. That's what I mean by we over-identify sometimes with our labels, and that can happen. Okay, so especially in that phase, so we want to be aware of that, and with that awareness, perhaps remind ourselves that there is more to me. Even if I can't see it right now, I can't. This is all I can feel, to keep it in mind that this is a phase. There is more to me than just that, okay? So I wanted to highlight that there too. So when I have notes there today, but when we I used to be a disability support worker for many years. So I used to go around people's homes, help them, especially with their showering, eating, brushing teeth, emotional support when we go out, and so forth. And what I realized for myself then is that that a lot of people on a disability pension, they have those permanent conditions. You know, people are born with that, that stays for that. And then there is a slight difference with complex PTSD. So I don't know what your doctors have told you, but when I was first diagnosed, and I was on a lot of medication, like I was on Seroquel, Lyrica, antidepressants, a whole lot. And I was told that this is it, this is my life, and most likely I will need to be on that medication for the rest of my life. Okay, and I felt like, oh, that's not me, that doesn't feel right. I don't want to be taking this for the rest of my life. So no matter what people are telling you, we have scientific evidence that the symptoms caused by trauma, we can resolve them. So I have been off medication for 4 years and my life is great. You know, yeah, so I still have emotions, I still have anxiety sometimes, but I have no flashbacks, nightmares or things like that. I have a lot of joy in my life, I have a lot of deep meaningful connections and things. That my life is completely different. Okay, so I want you to really keep that in mind. If you're in that crisis phase, I was in that too, and it feels like I felt like I'm too damaged, things will never ever get better for me, you know, my life is ruined. I really couldn't see anything different, but life has changed so much for me. So really keep that in mind, that those symptoms are not permanent. Many of us, though, have other underlying conditions. That might be a different story. So I'm talking to, if you're trying to apply for disability pension solely just for the complex PTSD, okay? So I want to keep that in mind. So that is not permanent, no matter how hopeless you might feel right now. And yeah, I can't stress that enough, because that's really important to me, okay? And this is a bit more complex. This is what I learned from other people, okay? Because there's some people who have applied and they didn't receive it, and there's some people who applied who have received it. And things can go wrong for both, okay? Because when we don't get it, we can feel really rejected, and we can feel like not being taken serious. That, you know, that because it is a real struggle. When you're going through crisis, it's really like your brain just doesn't function. I couldn't read past the first sentence in a paragraph. Cooking pasta was like a complex task, you know, when I was in crisis. So it was really, it felt very debilitating in that time. And this happened for me in my early 30s. And at that point, I have studied a lot of psychology at university level. So I had a lot of knowledge about that topic, and it happened to me. And it was like, first when I recognized those symptoms and stuff in myself, you know, I'm no longer sitting there writing exams about it. I can feel it in myself, and this can't happen to me, this is impossible, you know. Even though I had the knowledge, it still happened. It doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't make it any easier. But when we then try to reach out for support and we're getting rejected in that moment, that can really have a devastating effect, because this is, you know, it just amplifies our PTSD. It makes it flare up even more. And I also want to mention that people who did get the disability pension, it may have helped them for a while, but I've spoken to people, because it is not permanent, it's really helped them through the crisis, and then they got better, and they actually wanted to apply for a job, but then they couldn't, because having a job, or okay, yeah, that gives our life meaning, gives ourselves a sense of purpose. Okay, we all want to contribute to the world, but they felt like they couldn't do that, because if they go out and work, they would lose the disability. But then there was that fear: if I relapse, if things go pear-shaped, and then I can't work, then I'm ending up with nothing again, because I'm losing the disability. So they're really stuck in that kind of in that loop. I don't know if that makes sense, but to me, I just really feel for people in that, because it's so scary to think, oh, am I good enough? You know, can I cope now? Have I got enough tools to manage my PTSD, to not relapse? So that can happen as well. But for most part, it is people who didn't get it. That in Australia, that's probably more often the case. It's very difficult to get a disability pension when you only have PTSD. If you have other things, it's a bit easier. But if you didn't get it, I really want to highlight to you that doesn't mean your life is doomed. Okay, that doesn't mean that you can never get better. We live in an age where we have access to information freely online. You know, there's so many videos, so many books, so many blog posts sharing with people how to process trauma, tools and techniques and practices to help us manage our flashbacks and any kind of symptoms. It's all available there for us. Okay. Yes, it is better to have a therapist, and I had an excellent psychiatrist. I was really lucky. But most of the processing of trauma, I actually did by myself at home. Okay, so, and I know lots of people who never had the opportunity to work with a professional that was trained in PTSD or childhood trauma, because they were living in a country where it wasn't really available, or they were living so rural that there was no access to it, and yet they got better. Okay, maybe they had a friend, maybe they had a partner or a yoga teacher or someone that could help them a little bit. But learning the processes, because the healing, yes, it's great to have a therapist, but there's some healing that happens in that hour, in that session. But most of the healing actually happens in what you do in between the sessions. Okay, so I really don't want you to give up hope there. Just because you've been rejected, you can still get better. Okay, you can still find ways, like I said, or ask questions in communities like this, to see what other people found useful or helpful. What I did for myself when I was processing things by myself is I always picked the most insignificant incident in my life first to work on, to test things out. Don't use the big trauma, the heavy stuff. Use something that's not so traumatic, doesn't have such a big emotional reaction that you can test it out. Does that work for me? How does that feel? Do I want to try a different process, or should I give it a little bit more time, and so forth? So I really want to highlight that. It's just my wish for everyone that you do get better. That, you know, it is possible. That I just can't stress that enough. It always makes me so sad when I hear from people that feel so stuck and really believe that it's never going to get better for them. But yeah, like I said, it's in those groups when we hear from people who actually did get better, that can give us at least some sparks of hope that it's possible for me too. I just haven't found the right practice for myself yet. I always put a yet at the end, okay? So to not give up on that. So, and as I said, ask questions in the group. So we can help each other, support each other there. But yeah, so there was quite a lot today. So, but if you do go for the interview, be prepared. Really prepare yourself. Check in with yourself. How do you go with those labels? Do you over-identify with them like I did? and keep reminding yourself that those PTSD symptoms, they're not permanent. There is ways to get better. There's some excellent books. I love Gabor Mate, When the Body Says No, or Peter Levine. We just, for our book club, we read the book Waking the Tiger. It's an excellent book there as well that might help you with that too. So with that, I wish you all lots and lots of love and rainbows to brighten up the tough times just a little. See you guys. Bye.